Hey everybody, so today we continue our exploration of the 6 classes of essential nutrients by focusing on vitamins. Now, vitamins are micronutrients that are required in small amounts but play disproportionately large roles in athletic performance and overall health. As we'll see, even though vitamins don't provide calories or energy, now keep that in mind, they are vital for supporting energy production, immunity, red blood cell formation, and muscle and bone health, all of which directly affect how well an athlete can train, compete, and recover. So let's start with the basics. This is likely a review, but vitamins are organic compounds, meaning they contain carbon, and they're classified into 2 main groups based on their solubility: fat soluble and water soluble. So let's take a look at that. Now, fat soluble vitamins include A, D, E, and K, and they're absorbed along with dietary fat, and they're stored in the liver and fat tissues. And because the body can store them, deficiencies take longer to develop, but there's also a greater risk of toxicity, particularly when supplements are overused. For instance, vitamin A toxicity can cause symptoms such as liver damage, blurred vision, and even bone loss. Now, in contrast, the water-soluble vitamins, which include the B complex group and vitamin C, are not stored in large amounts. So the body uses what it needs and it excretes the rest in the urine. This means athletes must consume these regularly in their diet. So now, why do vitamins matter in sports nutrition? Although they don't supply energy directly, they act as coenzymes, which are helpers in metabolic processes. They support the pathways that convert carbohydrates, fats, and proteins into usable energy, repair tissue, and build new muscle. So let's look at some specific examples. B vitamins and energy metabolism. So the B complex vitamins, especially thiamine, which is B1, riboflavin, which is B2, niacin, B3, peroxidine, B6, folate, and cobalamin, B12, play a critical role in converting food into ATP, the body's energy currency. So for example, vitamin B6 is needed for glycogen breakdown, which is especially important during endurance exercises. So let's take a look at a brief case study or example. Maria is a 22-year-old collegiate distance runner. She begins experiencing early fatigue in her workouts. Her training volume has increased, but she's also recently restricted her carbohydrate intake. Now let's think, is this a good idea? A dietary analysis reveals she's not only consuming too few calories overall, but also not meeting her vitamin B needs, particularly B6 and B12. Now, after adjusting her diet to include more whole grains, lean meats, and legumes, her energy levels and performance begin to improve. Now, this illustrates how marginal deficiencies, even without clinical symptoms, can still impact performance in subtle but meaningful ways. Now, vitamin B12 and folate are essential for red blood cell formation and DNA synthesis. Athletes with low intakes of these may experience decreased oxygen carrying capacity of the blood, which limits endurance. So another case example, let's look at Jason. He's a vegan triathlete. He presents with symptoms of fatigue and lightheadedness during long training sessions. Lab tests reveal a borderline B12 deficiency. Now, since vitamin B12 is found only in animal-derived foods, Jason begins taking a sublingual B12 supplement and adds fortified foods like plant-based milks and breakfast cereals. Over time, his hemoglobin levels and endurance improves. So this case emphasizes the importance of individualized nutrition strategies, especially for athletes following specialized diets, like a vegan diet. Now, vitamins C and E provide antioxidant protection. Exercise increases oxidative stress, which is the buildup of free radicals in your body. While this is a normal part of training adaptation, excessive oxidative stress can damage muscle tissue and slow recovery. Vitamin C and vitamin E act as antioxidants, helping to neutralize these free radicals. However, it's worth noting that over-supplementation with antioxidants can blunt or slow down training adaptations. For example, high doses of vitamin C or E may interfere with improvements in mitochondrial function and endurance. Therefore, a food-first approach, or focusing on fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, is preferred. Now, let's take a look at vitamin D, which is a critical concern for many athletes. Among all the vitamins, vitamin D deserves special attention in sports nutrition. It supports bone health, immune function, and muscle strength. And while we can synthesize vitamin D from sunlight, many athletes, especially those who train indoors, who live in northern latitudes, or have darker skin, may not get enough. So let's look at another case example. Emma is a female collegiate gymnast. She suffers a stress fracture mid-season. She trains entirely indoors and avoids dairy due to lactose intolerance. Her blood work reveals low serum vitamin D levels, and she is prescribed a moderate dose vitamin D3 supplement and encouraged to include fortified plant-based milks and oily fish in her diet. After 3 months, her levels normalize and she resumes her training. This example illustrates the real-world implications of suboptimal or low vitamin D status in athletes involved in high-impact sports. Now, speaking of supplements, to supplement or not to supplement? That's the big question. Should athletes take vitamin supplements? For most, a well-balanced diet provides all the vitamins that they need. Whole foods offer not just vitamins, but also several other things like fiber, phytonutrients, and other compounds that work synergistically or together in the body. However, some athletes may need supplements in specific cases. For instance, those with restricted diets, such as vegans or athletes with food allergies, athletes in weight class or aesthetic sports who have low energy intakes, indoor athletes who are at risk for vitamin D deficiency, and female athletes, especially if menstrual dysfunction suggests energy deficiency or anemia. But now, any supplementation should be based on individual assessment, ideally guided by a sports dietitian or your healthcare provider, and you should avoid mega doses unless they are medically prescribed. Now, key takeaways from this chapter are vitamins are essential for supporting the metabolic processes that underlie athletic performance. And they're divided into fat and water-soluble groups, each with unique roles and risks. While vitamin deficiencies are rare in the general population, they are more common in athletes due to increased demands and dietary restrictions. B vitamins help with energy metabolism and red blood cell production. Vitamin C and E combat oxidative stress, but remember, high doses may be counterproductive. Vitamin D is a common area of concern and deserves careful monitoring, especially in indoor athletes. Now remember, a food-first approach is best, with supplements used strategically in situations where diet alone is insufficient. And individual needs will vary depending on the training load, dietary pattern, medical history, and environmental factors. So again, this is a very brief overview of the chapter, but in our next lecture, we'll turn to minerals, including iron, calcium, and sodium, and discuss their critical role in fluid balance, muscle contraction, and endurance performance. And until then, remember, while food fuels the body, vitamins keep all the internal systems firing on all cylinders. Hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please contact me and I'll be happy to help.